Aloha, everyone. Thank you for joining me on Think Tech Hawaii. I am Shonda Park, your host for Money Talks. March is Women's History Month, and we want to celebrate the vital role of women in American history. I have a powerful woman as my guest today who is no stranger to the show, and she will be sharing about the history of women and how we have evolved over the years. Welcome back, Rayanne.
Hi, Shonda. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being back on the show. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to, have this discussion today.
Me too, because I attended several of your talks about women, and I really appreciate that you're here to share that information with everyone today.
Absolutely. I'm excited about today because, first of all, as a woman myself, right, and being in the financial industry for over 10 years, I've really seen, how financially the great impact of you know, planning financially, specifically for women. So, I'm glad that we're able to talk about it and at the same time celebrate Women's History this month.
Yes, me too. So let's start by taking a look at women's history. We can have the first slide up.
So here is a timeline, and I think this timeline is very important because it really, shows the milestones of progression, right, in America. So the first one is 1920. So 1920 was when women were finally able to vote. Can you believe that for so many years, we weren't able to, but in 1920, that is a very significant year because women finally had rights to really to vote and put their opinion in, right? Because that's a big deal to be able to vote. Um,
And it's still hard to believe that for so many years, women did not have the right to vote.
and to think about it, it's 2020 now, so that's like just 100 years ago,
Yes.
which doesn't seem that long. And then we move into 1941. So this is when, this is during World War II, right? When women were, they played a huge role in World War II. This is when they offered auxiliary services during the war. And this really allowed more men to be out in the battlefield. So they played a very significant role at that time. And then in 1960, this is when women entered the workforce. So this is also very significant. This has really changed, I think, how women, it's normal for women to work today. However, prior to 1960, a lot of women stayed at home. Right. So you kind of see this big shift of, okay, now women voting, and then they played that huge role during World War II. And then now, women are starting to not just play a role in the household, but now they're also being able to work, right? And we see that when they entered the workforce in 1960. And then in 2013, this is when women were finally able to they were able to serve in combat, meaning there were women in the military, but they weren't allowed to be on on the ground, right, the battlefield. And so that's what happened in 2013. And then, moving forward, 2019, I thought this was pretty cool. All women spacewalk, right? NASA astronauts, so that's very significant. And then we see in 2020, we have a first female elected vice president. And that's also significant. I remember back in 2016 when Hillary Clinton ran, I was actually at an all women's conference. And so we were just kind of waiting to see, what kind of news we would have and how, amazing that would be being in an all women conference and receiving that news. However, it's okay because the next term we finally had our first female elected vice president. And then we have now 2023, the number of females in US Congress. That is another big deal. The first time we hit it was actually in 2018, but now we have again in 2023 a significant number in Congress. So now we have, and that's important because, these are where laws are made, right? So we have more women voice there in Congress. So that's just a little bit of a timeline where I feel like those major times in history really changed and impacted the roles that women played, not only in the household, but really in our economy and American history.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that timeline. And just looking at that in 2013, that's only 10 years ago. Looking back at history and just reflecting on how women have evolved, and we definitely have come a long way. So, you know, we've come so far, yet where are we financially?
Yeah, that's a really great point, Shonda, because you're absolutely right. We've come so far, yet financially, I feel like for women, we're at, kind of still at a disadvantage. And so if we look at some of the financial facts of life, okay, so fair or not, women need to do more long-term financial planning. Okay. And as we go through the slides later on, I think we'll understand what that really means because number one, the good news is women are inheriting more. Okay. So you hear about this great wealth transfer. Well, women will inherit 70% of the money that gets passed down within in 2 generations. Okay, so that's very important. That means that we definitely have to have, we have to do a lot of long-term financial planning for one, because we're going to inherit more money. Also, because women portfolio and spending power. So right now, there's 39% of investable assets that are controlled by women, and 70 to 80% of consumer spending is controlled by women. Right. So if you think about, all the purchase, or, that means basically purchases, right, that are being made are decided by women. They're the CFOs of their household. They decide what goes in their home, right, from
Yeah.
the food to their furniture to the cars that they drive, and it's interesting because a lot of the marketing or a lot of businesses still tailor to the men, yet the women are actually, studies show that they are the ones that make these financial decisions for the family.
I remember we were at a conference where Bridget Brennan was one of the keynote speakers. And Bridget Brennan is a woman who studies women. And I remember hearing that for the first time, that women have the majority of the purchasing power and the decision making for purchases. And she was saying that, yet, for instance, she gave an example, I believe, say a couple goes to buy a home, and the realtor is mainly looking only at the male, yet not knowing that it's the female who is the decision maker.
Yeah, and it's a big deal, and so that's why businesses today really should look from a female's perspective, right, and how we can service this very obviously big market, right? So, and also Bridget Brennan works with Dr. Joseph Coughlin, who has a lab in MIT, who is in partnership with Transamerica, and he talks about how the future is female, right?
Yes.
And so they have done tons of studies of how this is how it's really shaping and impacting the economy.
Definitely.
So, and then we see number three, right? Fact number three, it says uh, work, better educated, working, still earning less. Okay, what do we mean by that? So on average, women earn about 81 cents, okay, of every dollar a man has made. Okay, so that means basically 19 cents less, right? So you can have statistics show that you can have the same job, right? But if between a man and a woman who holds that same job, a woman will get paid less. Okay, and that can become very, very significant. And it's interesting because you see that women hold higher degrees today. Yet, do we still have a disparity? And actually, in fact, Shonda, this number has gotten better. It was a lot less before, but So yes, we're making progress. However, that can, 19 cents less is can be a huge difference. And therefore that means we have to do more with um, that money that we have, because essentially we're not making as much, right? As a woman.
Yes. I'm glad to hear that we have made a lot of progress though.
Yeah,
In this.
absolutely. We're getting
We're
there.
getting there.
And so if you now look at fact number 4, okay, we see women still spend more time caregiving. So this is a huge one, and I really want to spend some time on this. Time equals money except when it's unpaid. So if you look at a woman's role, when we talk about caregiving, it can be anywhere from childbirth, right, to taking care of relatives, especially our parents, sometimes even siblings, right? Or aunts and uncles. And sometimes it can even be taking care of our spouse, right? So if you think about that from a woman's, you look at her timeline, childbirth from 20s and 30s to now in maybe 30s, 40s, 50s, taking care of their parents, and sometimes well into their 50s, 60s, and later now taking care of their spouses. So why I say time equals money except when it's unpaid, they when you look at caregiving in the United States, right? It's they talk about so unpaid caregiving, they talk about lost opportunity. So when you look at when a woman has gives birth to a child, right? So it's a few weeks to a few months off. And not only that, sometimes it can even mean a complete pause in their career, right?
Mhm.
Some women, they don't go back to work until maybe their children start to go to school. So that's not 5 years later. Sometimes they wait even longer than that, right? So then that means they put a pause in their career. That means they're not earning any income. And then you look fast forward to maybe taking care of your parents, right, or your spouse.
Right.
Unpaired caregiving in the United States, it's estimated that there's $522 billion lost in wages every single year.
That is outrageous.
Billion, every billions, right? Not even millions, that's billions. And you know what's an even crazier number, Shonda, is that's wages. However, when they look at the total lost opportunity in retirement funds, and investments, pensions, that number is actually, I think it was something about 10 million caregivers who are age 50 and older. It's estimated that there's about $3 trillion in lost opportunity.
Wow. That's
So that's so significant. And so that's even, those numbers make me feel like, what, this is really why we need to educate and empower women to help them to see, financial planning really starts as soon as possible, because there are so many different times in our lives where, number one, even let's say we graduate from school and we start working, we're still earning less, right?
yes.
So that's number one. And then number two, there may be times, right? This of course does not apply to every woman, but studies show a good number of women. In fact, with the unpaid caregivers, it's about 75% are women. Okay, so that number is as a whole, the 522 billion wages every year, and
Mhm.
3 trillion in total lost opportunity.
75%.
But 75%,
Women.
that's the good majority are women. So that's why we really need to plan as soon as possible, right? But it starts with awareness first, right?
Does because women do have a lot of financial responsibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's so much that we have to consider, right, as women. And so that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I really feel like, if if we're aware of it, then at least we can plan for it, right? We, of course, again, uh, anticipating that maybe, if when you have a child, or when if you ever have to take care of your parents, those are the things that you may want to take into consideration when it comes to your financial future.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that brings us to fact number 5, right? That's why it says here, women and retirement. Basically, most women are less likely to earn steady income. Therefore, we have, our retirement planning is so crucial. Because a lot of times, even if we go back to work, let's say after giving childbirth, a lot of times women have to find jobs that are part-time and flexible. And so maybe they're because of that, their employers may not offer some kind of retirement plan, right?
Mhm.
Because they have to be part-time or have flexible hours. And again, less hours means less money going into saving for retirement. Um, and so the last one, fact number 6, is longevity. Women live longer, right? So um, I think it's because God knows we can handle a lot more,
Yes,
right? 'Cause
that we
that
are the caregivers, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was a whole lot we just talked about. I mean, saying out loud just makes me, again, like whenever we talk about this, it just makes me realize just um, how massive, uh, potentially these challenges, right, can really impact a woman. So,
Yeah.
um,
And we are
yeah,
living a lot longer. The longest living person is actually a woman, and she actually died at age 122. So,
that's a
if
lot of years.
people, yeah, it's a lot of years. And if people don't study it and they don't know, I know that a lot of people I talk to, they don't believe that people, not too many people live till even age 100. But to know that the longest living person died at age 122 and she was female.
Yeah, absolutely. And we both know, right? Which means that will require a lot more financial resources, right?
Definitely.
So, you think about a typical retirement at age, 65, 67, and then let's say the average life expectancy is, 86, 87. But now to think that it's possible another 20 to 40 years,
Yeah.
that's a lot of financial resources. And we both know, Shonda, that we may live longer, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're healthier, right? So some of the challenges that come with living longer is, we just talked about it. We need significantly more financial resources, and also because when we live longer, that we along the way we may, especially if we become a widow, right, we lose some of the income that from our spouses. So that's another thing to consider, right, when we're planning and making decisions. And also, we most of our, a good part of our life, we're caregiving. And when for women who are in their they actually have a higher risk of going into needing some kind of long-term care services, right? Um, After age 65. But when you look at the number of people in a care home, it's mostly women, right?
Mhm.
So that's another thing to consider as we talk about longevity.
Yes, definitely. So that's why financial planning is so crucial. And let's move on to talk about women and how we are actually real powerhouses.
Yeah, so I think although we may have some of these well, I like to call them facts of life because they are facts of life. Those are what we're going to encounter, right? But the truth is, women are, like you said, powerhouses, and empowered women means empower households. So when we can empower women, it really affects, it has like a ripple effect, right? Because it affects everybody around us, our children and our spouses, or even if we're not married. And I love this quote: whether single, married, widowed, or divorced, right? So that's another thing to consider also. Um, Women today seek ways to empower themselves and each other. This is especially true when it comes to finances and retirement planning. So I think the more that we can be okay with having these types of conversations, we can really help each other out, and to support each other and empower each other so that we can we're not left in poverty, like what a lot of statistics show that women, especially in their older age, because of those things, widowhood or divorce, or a lot of women choosing to be single, a lot of times, so the long term, we see that that there are statistics with poverty in older age, right?
Mhm.
So but in general, women are financial powerhouses, right? We actually 41% of mothers are primary breadwinners in the household. So that's changing too.
And I
We
remember Bridget Brennan mentioned something about that. She had the studies and the statistics that showed that a lot of women are choosing not to get married or getting married at a much later age, and many women are choosing not to have children.
Yes, right. And the ones that do have, whether if they don't have children, that's why they're the prime, or they're not married, right? They're the primary breadwinner. And even if they are married and have kids, we're seeing a huge shift of women that are the primary breadwinners for the family. Not like before, we talked about how in 1960 is when they really entered the workforce, right? Because prior to that, a lot of women stayed home and took care of the family.
Of the children, yeah, and took care of the spouse. Yeah, we've come so far.
We have. And that's why you see that women, again, are financial decision makers, right? We actually control 51% of the wealth in the United States. Uh, and the vast majority,
More than half.
yeah. And get this, 52% of all management, professional, and related occupations in the US are held by women. Okay, so, and the
Awesome.
vast majority of women likely to manage all household finances. We kind of briefly touched up on this, right? But 90% of all women will be solely responsible for their household financial well-being at some point in their life due to singleness, divorce, widowhood, or simply by choice. So, we have a lot on our plate, right?
Yes, we do. But let's celebrate some of the women who have had major impacts in American history and in their respective fields. And let's share some of their quotes.
Yes, I love these quotes. So the first one is Catherine Graham. So she ran the Washington Post, and it says here, "To love what you do and feel that it matters. How could anything be more fun?" And I think this is so true, especially for us women, right? We really have to feel like well, to really love what we do is really important. And Catherine Graham has made significant um, you know, it made a huge significance in history because she had many things that she wrote about had made changes to history. Just like an example is Nixon, right, and the scandal. So that's just one. But she is an entrepreneur, um, and the next person is also an entrepreneur. We have here Sarah Blakely. She is a founder and owner of Spanx. So I really admire her. She really started from her whole. Um, the reason why she started the business was because of Spanx is because she saw that there was a need for women to really understand that. Because before she founded Spanx, most of the companies that made um, pantyhose for women were ran by men. So they didn't really understand what our needs were, right? So that's why she saw the need from a woman's perspective.
Yes,
So,
and there's that saying, find a need and fill it,
yeah,
right? That's
and
exactly what she did. And her story is so amazing.
self-made billionaire.
Yes.
And this quote says, "I think my story says that when women are given the chance and the opportunity, that we can achieve a lot and we deliver." And I couldn't agree more with Sarah Blakely and that's why we're doing these talks, right, Shauna, to really help empower women when it comes to their finances, regardless of what you do, right? Whether it is you're the primary caregiver in the house, right, taking care of the family, or you run a corporation. I think it's all about empowering each other.
Yes, it is.
And then the next person we want to celebrate is Billie Jean King. So she really changed, the sports, right? So she really fought for equality when it came to sports. Reputation is what others think about you was far more important as character, because that is what you think about yourself. That's so true. And with Billie Jean King, she actually fought for women to get paid more in the sports industry. So
And
that's
she,
what
yeah, and she's made a way for so much more women after her. And yeah, she's just amazing.
absolutely. And then the last person, so the three people they're kind of famous, right? They have some celebrity status, but this last person, her name is Betty Dukes. Okay, she was a Walmart greeter, and what she fought for was also equality in the workplace, because she saw that her male counterparts were getting paid significantly more, and she did something about it. Her story actually, her it went up to the Supreme Court, and even though they didn't win, I think there was a lot of changes that were made in
Because of
yeah, because of her strength, and
yes,
because of what she fought. She fought for what she believed in, which is women being treated equally in the workplace. And so her quote says, "When women are strong, the family is strong, and society as a whole prospers."
that's awesome.
That.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing all of this. And I know that you have a seminar coming up that you want to share about.
Yes, so I would love to, man, time went by so fast. I feel like there are so many things that we still need to talk about. So we do have a Women in Wealth seminar that I'd love to invite everyone, not just women. I think it's also important for their other halves, right? Sons, husbands, brothers, to really understand, from a financial perspective, or from a woman's perspective, how to plan financially. So that's this coming Saturday. And my contact information is coming up next. So if you're interested in joining us, please give me a call, and I'd love to share more details about the seminar that's coming up this Saturday.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rayanne. Thank you again for being on the show today. Rayanne will be back on the next episode of Money Talks to talk about specific financial challenges that women have and solutions to those challenges. So thank you again, Rayanne. Mahalo, everyone.
Thank you, Shonda.
Thank you so much for watching Think Tech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.